Welcome, everybody. This is the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform weekly community call on March 7. So this is the Tuesday call, 8 a.m. Pacific time, where we always have Microsoft presenters. They are either PMs, as in product managers, or program managers, depending on our organization, cloud advocates, or engineers. But we're trying to give this call as an interesting for you as the Microsoft presents for the community, so for customers and partners. The Thursday call series, which happens from 7 a.m. every single Thursday, is more on community to community, and that applies also for the Power Platform monthly community call, which is happening within 2 weeks, if I remember correctly. Now, today, we'll go through a typical set of slides on latest updates and the news and what's happening across the ecosystem all up, and then we'll have the real stars of today. We'll start with Waldek, who's going to do a quick recap on Microsoft Graph Hackathon, which is currently ongoing. So this is the Microsoft Graph Hackathon ongoing within the first 2 weeks within the March. There's great prizes in place, new batches, all of that stuff. Waldek is going to cover that. And then we have Ayça, who's going to talk about dynamically creating an Azure communication services identity and a token. Really important topic. A lot of our samples always start with the fact that, hey, here, as you now have the token, this is what you do. So it's actually a good start, the demo from, okay, where do I get the token? How do I actually get the stuff moving? And then Garry Trinder is going to talk about the Teams Toolkit Learn Path and build the Microsoft Teams tab app using the Microsoft Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. Just to recap some of our assets which are available for you to get started within our community. First of all, we have our Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community channel, where we have all of the videos and community call recordings and demos published. So subscribe to that one today. It's the easiest way to stay up to date on all of the cool stuff which is getting out from Microsoft. We have our relatively new LinkedIn group for discussions and updates. So that is a great location to go and share your findings, articles, your blog posts, or if you have questions on, hey, I had this problem thing here, maybe you can find somebody to answer your question over there as well. So great location to sign in or join as well. We have a lot of open source assets available in GitHub, but as it might be a bit difficult to find the relevant sample for you, we have also the sample galleries in place, which is really targeted for you to find the relevant sample for your business scenario. And if you're wondering that there's too many URLs to remember, luckily there's only one, which is akms/community/home, and that will redirect you to the location where you'll find all of the different assets across the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform areas. As mentioned on the community calls, we do have quite a few of community calls still. We have the Tuesday one, which is this one, 8 a.m. Pacific, every single Tuesday. We most likely will have a small summer break, like we had a small holiday break within the winter time or Christmas time or holiday time. But we are still far from that. I'm still seeing snow from outside of my window. So it's not summertime in the Northern Hemisphere yet. We also have Power Platform, Microsoft Identity Platform, and Office Add-ins monthly calls, which are really great calls as well, happening once a month. And then we have the Thursday series with Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community call, which is bi-weekly call, and the sister call of that one happening 7 a.m. Thursdays is the Viva Connection and SharePoint Framework call. So we're trying to be consistent around when the calls are happening. You can find the recurrent invites from akms/community/calls, and please use the recurrent invites. Why? Well, starting from next week and the week after, we are in a bit of a mess related on time zones, and it's part of this globalization. US moves to summertime on this weekend, and Europe moves to summertime 2 weeks later. And that is actually causing a bit of a chaos between the calls. So some of the calls are moving, some of the calls are not moving within upcoming weeks. But if you download the recurrent invite, it will actually adjust itself automatically within the calendar. So that's why we recommend using those recurrent invites. And then if you're wondering on where do I get the agendas and all of that, so we do publish the agendas for all of the calls already a week before or the previous week at our community meetup location. So it's a good way of staying up to date on, hey, what are the demos which are coming up, what are the things what's coming up as well. And now on the community calls, we're looking into having community demos, and the community demos might be something you learn to do, something you build, something it might be even from your day-to-day work and as part of your product development, but don't sell your product, but tell us a storyline. Hey, we were looking into doing integration with OpenAI and integrating that in here, and we were looking into how to make that happen. So explaining others how you're learning things is what we're looking into doing here. Of course, it might be open source, it might not be open source, but do please sign up for the presentations, for the demos. we would love to have more community demos within the calls. We also have a lot of assets available for getting started in Microsoft 365 development. So we have the developer program, great way of getting a free E5 developer channel to test out things, including the Power Platform side of the house. So there's a certain level of things where you can do there automatically and free. And then we have the Microsoft 365 developer learning material, which is free for you to take advantage as well. We also have 3 different community targeted podcasts and vlogs or video blogs. First of all, we have the Microsoft 365 Developer Podcast hosted by Jeremy Fake and Ayça or Paul Schaffelin, depending on the storyline. We also have the Microsoft 365 PMP Weekly hosted by Vesa Juvonen and Waldek Mastykarz, and then Power Platform Connection is the new add-on. I think they're in episode 3. Yes, they are from this week or last week, and that's hosted by David Warner and Hugo Bernier. So really good options to stay up to date on what's happening across the Microsoft Cloud. We also have our unified Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community sample gallery. So if you're looking into, hey, I need to build something, I need to build a cool Power App, I need to build a cool Microsoft Teams solution, I need to build a SharePoint framework solution for Microsoft Viva Connection. This is a great location to find reference samples, ideas, and innovations, what others have built. And it includes both Microsoft and community created solutions. So really, really cool location to stay up to date on what are other people building within these technologies. Now, as you find a sample, you might be wondering, okay, so now I'm in a GitHub, what do I do now? But we do have you covered with our Sharing is Caring initiative, and David is going to talk about this one.
Awesome. Thank you, Voss. See, I can't talk today either. Vesa, thank you. We have you covered, as Vesa said. 1,500 plus samples. How do you use them? How do you contribute to them if you have samples? Sharing is Caring is a program that provides hands-on guidance. And that means that we're going to meet live with you in Teams calls in safe space. We don't record them. We're going to walk you through how to do it on that call. And you are going to feel empowered when you leave, and you're going to have new friends to work with and collaborate with around the world. So next week is our Power Platform community call, as Vesa had mentioned, along with the Power Platform samples contributor. And we are getting more PNP SPFX samples within VM loaded up and SPFX Developer Workstation loaded up. So definitely check out aka.ms/sharingiscaring for all of the newest agendas and opportunities. Before we go back to Vesa, though, hey, I just wanted to congratulate you and Waldek on the 200th episode. I know you skimmed over that. Humble as you are, I think we all need to celebrate that for a moment. So congratulations to the two of you.
Thank you. It's a good start. So whenever we get to the thousands, I think then it's good. Then I can be happy. No, just kidding. Thank you, David, on that. Now, on other news, we started to actually recap of the spring events here as well. So we want to make sure that you are aware of all of these great opportunities of doing in-person conferences. So first of all, we have the Microsoft 365 conference happening in May 2nd to 4th at the MGM Grand Las Vegas. And we cover Microsoft Viva, Microsoft Teams, Microsoft SharePoint, Microsoft Power Platform topics in here, and a lot of the familiar faces and sounds or audio or vocals which you hear from these calls are actually presenting in there as well. We also have the European Collaboration Summit happening in end of May 2023, and that's happening in 24th to 26th May 2023. Great conference as well. The European Collaboration Summit is a bit of a special conference because it's a no-profit conference, so the prices on that conference are significantly less than maybe some of the other conferences as well, but they're not looking into making any profit out of it. And then we have the 365 EduCon, and the first one of them in this year is happening at DC in June 12 to 16. And now coming back on the Europe side, we also have the European Power Platform Conference happening in Ireland in this pretty much same time actually as the DC on 365 EDU, so 20th to 22nd of June. So those are the largest spring conferences which are currently shared. We might have some surprises still in our calendar, but we'll share those updates in the weekly call as well. There are also a lot of community hosted community events and conferences, and you should check out AKMS Community Days or communitydays.org as the location to stay up to date on them. This is just what's happening within March and in April, and we keep on updating those lists as those evolve. On the news side, I'm not going to deep dive here significantly. 3 news on the Microsoft developer side around the different topics. So Teams Toolkit version 5.0 pre-release is available for collecting feedback. A lot of cool stuff on the API level, and also the Microsoft Teams channel meetings now supporting meeting apps, which is really, really cool. On Power Platform side, there was a really exciting announcement around build solutions faster with Microsoft Power Platform and next generation AI, and that's a really, really cool blog post as well. And then we had from Teams blog, we had a introducing closed captions in PowerPoint Live for the meetings, and rapid deployment Microsoft Teams at scale to empower your frontline workers, which is a great storyline as well. And both SharePoint and Microsoft Teams had the monthly summaries. Those monthly summaries are awesome way of staying up to date on, okay, I missed a few of the notes. What has happened within the last month? What are the meaningful things across Microsoft Teams and SharePoint and Viva and many of the relevant technologies? So those are really, really cool things to catch on. Before we go to the crew photo in Together mode, Wajeed is going to talk about what's the latest on the Teams platform documentation side.
Thanks, Ayça. Hello, everyone. So we have updated the Teams dev documentation on 5 steps to drive app adoption. One of the key activities after publishing your Microsoft Teams app is to drive adoption for your app with your customers. Ensure that the users interact with your app and you learn from their usage behavior and feedback. You'll incorporate the learning in your app revisions. Examples of post-publish activities are deployment and adoption-related engagements, user base growth, support for existing app customers, app updates, and the app monetization. So this document provides resources and best practices to support the rollout of your Teams app in your customer's organization. The relevant personas here are business decision makers, IT admins, and the end user. Please go ahead and check this out, the documentation section. And if you have any feedback or suggestion, please post it on aka.ms Teams platform feedback. The link is available in the footer, and you could also configure to the RSS feed to get regular platform updates. Thank you. Back to you, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you, Wajeed, on that one. And then before we go to the actual demos of today, let's do a quick crew photo. I've queued up already things in here. I'll just move everybody in this window and put the camera on. So we do have 50 seats in the room again. That's the max out for now. I am hearing rumors that we might have actually more capacity on that room in the future, but I can't promise anything. Kevin, I saw you're being impressed, but don't share that in Twitter, right? No, just kidding. Yes, I think we are hitting the 50. Are we hitting the 50? I will put the recording on and let's do some hand waving, everybody. So we'll grab a GIF animation out of that. Thanks everybody for joining once again. Awesome to have you on a call. Really cool to have this many people once again on the weekly calls, and keep the feedback coming. Excellent. Thanks everybody. Brilliant. Cool. Really cool. We're getting better and better doing the crew photo together because we don't want to, of course, eat up too much time from the actual stars of the day. We'll start with Waldek, and then we go to Ayça and then Garry Trinder. But Waldek, you are first in the queue.
Perfect. You don't need to unshare your screen because I was so clever as to add my slides to your deck so that you can stay in control. Last week on March 1, we learned Hack Together Microsoft Graph and .NET, which is a 15 days virtual hackathon all about Microsoft Graph and .NET. We launched last week on March 1 with a keynote from Scott Hanselman and Ina Arenas about what is Graph? What is .NET? Like, why would you use these two to build cool apps for work and school? And what can you do with that? Then the next day on March 2, we had a great session again going deeper into Graph. What are the things like Graph Explorer? How can you use that to query Graph and see what data is in it, what you can get back? And then how can you get to that first point? Build your first app with .NET that's connected to Microsoft Graph. Tomorrow, we will have a Ask the Expert session, and that will be the time for everybody to ask anything you would want to ask about Microsoft Graph.net. How do I get a token? What's new on Microsoft Graph? What's new in the SDK? Why would I use this? That is the place for you to join. It's live tomorrow at 4 p.m. GMT. There will be links for you to join. Like, you don't need to note anything. There's one more thing that I said. It is a hackathon, right? And that means prizes. There you go. So everybody who builds an app submits the app. As long as the app uses Microsoft Graph and .NET and the Microsoft Graph.NET SDK, qualifies for any of the 3 prizes that we have to offer, right? So for first prize, you will get Xbox, $200 gift card, $100 Azure credit, and digital badge. For second prize winner, $200 gift card, $100 Azure credits, and digital badge. And for third prize winners, $100 Azure credit and digital badge. Actually, everybody who submits a working app will get a digital badge thanks to David and Hugo and the Microsoft 365 Power Platform and Microsoft 365 Platform community. The cool thing is you can take part in the hack either by yourself or as a team up to 4. So if you win as a team of 4, all 4 of you will get an Xbox, $200 gift card, $100 Azure credit cards, and 4 times a badge, right? So it's really worth the effort. And as I said, any app that uses Microsoft Graph.net SDK and is built with .NET qualifies. So how do you start? Go to aka.ms/hack-together, register for the hack, hack away, and be sure to send your app to us by March 15, right? That is the deadline. So you have 1 more week to hack away. With that, back to you, Vesa.
Excellent. Thank you, Waldek, on that one. Really, really cool stuff, and great to have those prizes recapped here as well. So thank you, Waldek, on that. Now, so let's move to the next demo. So we have Ayça and Garry, and Ayça's going to start with the Dynamically Create and Azure Communication Services Identity and Token.
Thanks, Vesa. Let me turn off my camera and you'll see me during the demo as well. And I will share my screen really quickly. And thanks, Waldek, for the brief summary of what we did in the Hack Together. It is really going exciting at this moment, and we are waiting everyone to join Hack Together. Today, I'm going to talk about integrating services across Microsoft Cloud to enhance user collaboration. This is a part of this, by the way, before I jump into it, let me introduce myself. If you're new here, my name is Ayça. I'm a cloud advocate at Microsoft, working together with Waldek and Garry in the same team. And today I will talk about how we can do ACS, Azure Communication Services integrations with Microsoft Teams. This session is part of the series. We already done a lot at the beginning of the series. First, my colleague Dan was here to talk about how audio and video calling from a custom app we can bring into a Teams meeting. And the second week, he was here again talking about how we can create Azure Communication Services resource on Azure. And in the third week, he was here showing you integrating Azure Communication Services calling functionality into a React app. Last week, I was here to talk about how we can dynamically create a Microsoft Teams meeting using Microsoft Graph, which was consumed by Azure Communication Services as well as by the client side of the user on Microsoft Teams. And today I will be talking about how we can dynamically create an Azure Communication Services identity and token. And last week, which will be next week, then we'll be here back again talking how we can deploy our app to Azure. If you're interested in learning more about our series, all of the videos are available in our community channel. You can go ahead and check out the video separately. And I will jump into dynamically creating an Azure Communication Services identity and token for this week. Before we start talking about the code and everything, I just want to show you what we're talking about here. This is a customer viewpoint. We created a React app which consumes Azure Communication Services. As a customer, they can join the customer meeting through React. And the point they send the request, there will be a Teams meeting created on the client's calendar. Client will use Microsoft Teams interface to join the meeting, and both client and the customer will meet in the same meeting, even though customer is joining from React app and client, the customer agent will be joining from Microsoft Teams. So they both meet in the same meeting by consuming Microsoft Teams URL, which we covered last week, how we can create the meeting link dynamically. So this week, we will be focusing on dynamically creating an Azure Communication Services identity and token. This will be under the React Azure Communication Services and connection with Azure Functions. So we are creating the token for our client, which we don't ask any login, any permissions from the client side. But of course, for all the clients, we need some sort of a user token for them to join the meeting through Azure Communication Services. As a customer agent, we will be using Teams, Microsoft Teams as an interface. So we will know about the customer agent because they will be consuming Teams. We will have their identity. But for the client, every time when they try to join the meeting, we will need ID and the token from their side. So we will know that the same individual is trying to join the call and maybe trying to recall as well. That will help us for the Azure Communication Services bit in the React app. So let's quickly take a look how we're going to do that. It's really straightforward. We are making this dynamic ACS identity and token call from another Azure Functions. We've seen how to call Microsoft Graph from Azure Functions last week. This week, we will be covering another Azure Functions where we are calling ACS Identity Client. What we are doing here is we create a function and then we get ACS connection string from the code. In our code, we are using connection string. We are putting in the .env file, but you can also get that from Azure directly as well. Once you get the connection string, the only thing you do is just calling the communication identity client to create user identity and token. And once you create your user, we are basically returning the user details to back to our React app, so our ACS app will be working. This function will be triggered the moment when our client starts the app. The moment they go to the URL, this function will be triggered and will be returned with the user ID and the token, and our user will be able to join the meeting with the newly created identity and token. I want to quickly show you how we do that in our code. Let's quickly go to our code and then I will run the app. First of all, if you joined the previous sessions in the community call, you may realize we've been going through the same app in the past 5 weeks. This week, we will be focusing on Team. Last week, we covered Teams meeting function. This week, we will be focusing on ACS token function. Here's our function under the server TypeScript, and we will be calling that function from app.tsx, which is under the client React app. So basically, the moment when we render the app UI, we are calling these two functions, one that we've seen last week, and this one we will be covering this week. So the moment we render the UI, we are calling React App ACS user function, which will be, let's go to .env file, which will be localhost 7071 API ACS token function. It's exactly our function mentioned here. And when we call that in the UI, our function will be triggered. And as I showed in the slides as well, we will be first getting the connection string, which is again in the .env file. And after that, we will create token client by using communication identity client. And this requires the connection string from ACS. You can create this connection string on Azure portal and then cover that part in, I think, 2 weeks before. So you can go check out that video. Once we create the token, then we can create our user with the token client. And after that, the only thing we will return as the body will be user ID. User ID will be consumed here when setting up the meeting. And by using this user ID, our React app will be understanding who's this user. We will be creating user ID and token every time a new user joins the session and every time when they want to make a call with our customer agent. So I want to see that in action. Yeah, okay, here's my taskbar. I want to see that in action. Let's open the browser. My React app is running at the moment, and my as well as my functions, both of the functions are working. Today, we will be focusing on the ACS user function. Let's go to localhost 3000. And the moment when I hit this UI, it's initializing, meaning that it is creating a new token and the ID for me. And I can quickly show up here. Hi, everyone. And here, I already have the ID and the token. When I click on start the call, my ID and the token will be consumed by ACS, and I will be joining the meeting with my newly created ID and the token, and I can start connecting with the customer agent. So this is pretty much it. And all these samples and details are available for you if you're interested in trying this demo out by yourself. Here are the resources. If I need to quickly go through the resources, the first one is ak.ms/Microsoft-Cloud. You can find more integrations about Microsoft Cloud there. If you're interested in this particular tutorial, you can go through the step-by-step tutorial by just going to ak.ms/mscloud-acs-teams-tutorial. This will be guiding you to step-by-step tutorial for this workshop specifically. We have a samples repo on GitHub. We also have the Azure Communication Services UI library, which will be super useful if you're interested in using ACS. If you're interested in creating a React app, let's say, you can use the UI library to create something like I showed a couple minutes back. And if you're new to Azure Functions and interested in what kind of functions do we have, in this example, I've shown you HTTP trigger, but there are more available in Azure Functions. You can go and check out ak.ms/msazure-functions. And Graph was the topic for last week, but you will see, if you complete this tutorial, you will see it plays a huge role in this workshop as well. If you're interested in learning more about Microsoft Graph, you can check out ak.ms/ge, or you can join Hack Together to learn more about Graph. This is all I wanted to cover today. If you have any questions, I will be in the chat. I can answer your questions and hand over to Garry, and he has an exciting topic to cover.
Thank you, Ayça. Really, really cool. Awesome stuff, and it's so simple. So really cool. Great work on the demos as well. Let's then move to Garry. We're going to talk about continue the series related on Teams Toolkit Learning Path, and this time I'm going to focus on tab app creation using the Teams Toolkit, unless I'm completely mistaken. Right, Garry?
No, that's exactly what I'm going to show. So that's great.
Excellent. So we're aligned. So this is a good start.
We are. Let's share my screen.
All good. Take it away.
Perfect. Right. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Today, I'm going to be talking through how to build a Microsoft Teams tab app using Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code. My name is Garry Trinder. I'm a cloud developer advocate at Microsoft. This session today is part of a 5-week series. This is covering the build and deploy apps for Microsoft Teams using Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, Microsoft Learn Path. So this is covered 5 weeks. We have already covered how to get started on week 1. So that was installing Teams Toolkit and creating a sample app. Week 2, I covered how to build a bot, a notification bot. And this week, I'm going to be covering tabs. Next week, well, actually not next week. I'm going to skip a week, but the next session is going to be covering Teams JavaScript library and how you can integrate that into your application. So bring some of the native features of Teams into your apps. And then finally, in week 5, we're going to go through how to deploy and publish your app to Teams and to Azure. And you've got everything available to you at the moment. So the Learn Path is live. So if you want to check that out, go to aka.ms/learn/Teams Toolkit, and you'll find all the information on the modules that we've already covered and actually the modules that we're going to cover. If you're interested and you want to jump ahead. So I just want to quickly recap if this is the first session that you've seen and I'm talking about Teams Toolkit and you're thinking, what is it? So Teams Toolkit is an extension for Visual Studio Code. It enables you to build and debug and publish Teams apps much faster than you would be building everything yourself. So if you're using the Visual Studio Code version, you're going to be using JavaScript or TypeScript, and that can be used on Windows, macOS, and Linux as well. But also to just make you aware, there is also Teams Toolkit baked into Visual Studio 2022. So if you're a .NET developer using C# or just on Windows, you can build Teams apps using the toolkit in Visual Studio. For today, and this series, we're just concentrating on Visual Studio Code. So, if you're interested in Visual Studio, let us know as well. If there's anything that you'd like us to cover, let us know as well. I'll get up to speed on that. So, a few prerequisites just to call out as I'm going through this. So, to build your tab app, you're going to need a Microsoft 365 developer tenant with custom apps enabled. You're obviously going to need Visual Studio Code because Teams Toolkit is a Visual Studio Code extension, and it's also built on it uses the Node.js runtime as well. So you're going to need at least Node.js version 14 installed on your machine. Okay, so let's get into building tabs. What is a tab? Well, a tab is really like a Teams-aware web page that you can embed in Microsoft Teams. You can add them into your channels inside a team. You can add them in group chats, or you can also have them as a personal app as well. So open that up from the left-hand rail. So you've got a focused area where you want to be able to surface your app. You can also use them in meetings, so you can surface a tab in the pre-meeting stage before the meeting's actually started, during the meeting as well through the meeting stage, and also post-meeting as well. So when you're viewing a meeting that's already happened and you want to show information about that meeting in your tab, you can also surface it there as well. Now, tabs can be just static, or they can actually have some configuration as well. So you can build configuration pages so that when people in your organization start using your app that contains a tab, they can configure it to their individual needs. So you can build tailored experiences rather than just a single page that just shows a particular static set of content. And tabs can also provide a single sign-on support as well, so users don't have to manage multiple accounts. You can use your Azure AD account to authenticate and make requests as well through that app. And now, tabs are a really good way of surfacing existing apps as well. So, if you've got an existing web app that people already use in your organization, you think, actually, we want to bring that into Teams because that's where our employees are working. You can do that with a tab. Now, you might not want to bring the whole app in. You might want to bring certain areas of your app into Teams, but using a tab is a great way of being able to do that. Now, the last few weeks we've been kind of talking through a support scenario, and suppose in this scenario you've got support engineers that want to be able to view and update statuses of tickets, manage assignees, and do that all through Teams. A tab could be used to surface that information in the place where they're working. It might be that you want to surface knowledge base information within Teams as well in a tab. Using a tab in this scenario can actually help. So the support engineers don't have to go to different systems all the time. They can look at a tab, or a tab in a channel, or a tab in a personal app, and access that quickly through Teams, to really help that overall support process and improve the communication within your teams. Does Teams Toolkit come into all of this? Well, Teams Toolkit really helps you to build these tab experiences through a series of project templates, which I'll show you. And it's worth noting that all of these templates are actually using the Create React app library. So as you can imagine, all of the tabs use React. So if you're a React developer, then this will be good news for you. So this is set up right from the get-go. You don't have to configure anything, and you get the features that you would get from using Create React app to build any other web application, but you get it in Teams. So let's quickly take a look through the code which is created for you when you create a new project using Teams Toolkit Visual Studio Code. So here is our main app file. So this is like the top level component in our app. We get a use Teams hook. This is provided by the Teams FX library that is provided with the template, and this gives us easy access to things like themes. So what is the current theme being used in the user interface, the dark theme or light theme? We can pass that into a provider, which shares this globally within our application that components that are in this app can use. They can change their change the user interface on the fly should an end user want to change their theme, so everything updates. And the use Teams hook actually provides you with lots of other information as well. It provides you with Teams context as well, and whether this app is actually running in Teams or not. Nice little utility there. If you're maybe again surfacing your existing web applications outside of Teams and in Teams as well. So it's a very useful hook that provides lots of information for you. The next thing I want to talk about is the router. So the router is provided for you to provide client-side routing for your application. So we can see that there are 4 routes that are provided for you. So the privacy in terms of use, these are pages that are needed to be added into the app manifest that's created for an app. So if you're building a tab, you can use this setup to basically create your privacy pages and your terms of use pages. There's also a config component as well, which is another type of tab. That's the configurable tab. But I'm just going to focus on the tab component at the moment. So this basically means that if the browser goes to our web server address with /tab at the end, it's going to load a React component called tab, and that essentially becomes our tab and our page that's going to be loaded. And additionally, what it gives us as well, if for whatever reason someone hits the root address of our web server, it's going to automatically redirect them to our tab as well. So again, this all coming from the React setup. It basically means that we don't have to handle all of this. We could just go straight into the tab component and actually start building out our interface for our tab and add any components that we want to. So let's take a look at that now. And this is the out-of-the-box example. Really simple. The tab is just a simple function that returns a welcome component. And that welcome component, again, can provide whatever user interface that we need. But this, as you're building out your tab app, this is where you're going to start. This is where you're going to start adding in your own features and user interface. So it's really lightweight in its setup. So with that, let's actually go to the demo and let's go to Visual Studio Code. Here we go. So I've got Visual Studio Code here. Again, if this is the first time that you've seen Teams Toolkit demo, the way that you actually install Teams Toolkit is you can go to the extensions marketplace in Visual Studio Code and just search for Teams Toolkit. I already have this installed. Just open up the page and you'll be able to see the install button as well in there. When you've installed Teams Toolkit, you'll find that you'll have a little Teams icon on the sidebar on the left-hand side. Click that and you get a number of options. Now, we want to create a new app, so we can click on the Create New App and go through the project creation wizard. So yes, I want to create a new app, and here are the different templates that we have available to us. So we've got a number of tab options actually for us. We've got, I'm going to start with our basic kind of Hello World tab. We've also got SPFX tabs as well. So if you're using SharePoint Framework, you can use Teams Toolkit as well to build your tabs. We've got an SSO enabled tab as well. So that's a tab that comes already pre-configured with SSO, and a new template called Dashboard tab as well, which sets up, as you can imagine, a dashboard like tab that's got user interface already there set up that you can go and amend. For now, I'm just going to use the basic tab template, and we get a choice of language, so JavaScript or TypeScript. I'm going to choose JavaScript. Place where I want to save this, and then type in your application name, hit enter. That will scaffold the application for you, and it will open up, and then you'll be able to run it. Now, I'm not going to go through that step now because I've already done that, so I'm going to skip to an already created project. So this is all default. I've not changed anything. What I have done is it is running at the moment, so hence why you can see the terminal down here with the local addresses already showing. So this is what you get by default. So we've got the README that's going to provide lots of information as to how to debug, how to edit and manifest, and then eventually deploy this to Azure if you want, and also add in extra features. So this is just a basic tab. It doesn't have single sign-on, but the information of how you can do that is also provided. If we look at the project structure, so we have all of our code for our tab in the tabs folder. If we go into the source folder, we can see that we've got some React JSX files in here. And if I open the components folder, let's go to the app JSX file. So this is the app file that I showed you. This is the very top level of our app with the router and the routes and the link and references to the individual tabs. So if I go into the tab component, we can see that is, it's very basic. Let's just have a look at the welcome tab, and we can see that, we've got lots more kind of code in here that is basically building up a user interface, and that looks like this, which is already running. So I've already run Teams Toolkit and loaded this into my developer tenant. So to save time on the npm installs that take a while, this is already running and side loaded, and I'll just quickly go back and show you how I did that. I went to Teams Toolkit on the left hand side, and I clicked this button here to debug, and then chose my the browser which I wanted to use for my debug session, which is either going to be Edge or it's going to be Chrome. So if I just go back to the tab, so we see it's running. If I just refresh, we should see that it will reload. So we know that that's actually coming from the live web server. And we've just got some user interface components on here. We've got a tab control that's on here that's just showing different information. So let's just put this side by side with the actual code. So we can see here that the actual image is all coming from this welcome component. Now, what's really nice in here is that it's actually got hot reload as well. So if I come in and make a change and hit save, you see that the code is being compiled, and the change happens immediately. So it's a nice setup already from not having to make any changes. I've just created a project. I've run F5, sideloaded that into my project. Let Teams Toolkit do all the setup that it actually it needs, and so I don't have to do it. I'm then able to make changes to the code and have that reflected in the running app as well. Now, just to cover the user interface components that I talked about. So by default, it uses the React North Star library. So we can see that it's pulled in like a menu component that can be used to create this interface. And with that, the slides. And yeah, so I think you've seen how kind of really quick and easy it is to create a new Teams app that contains a tab. If you want to learn more, then definitely check out the Teams Toolkit documentation, where there's documentation there, as well as the Learn Path of how to create a new Teams project. Lots of information on building tabs for Teams as well in the docs. And this goes into how to design them, what user interface to use, things to do, things to don't or avoid, as well as documentation for adding single sign-on to your Teams apps as well. Should you want to, then want to make requests to the Graph API and pull information into your app as well, and to help your users go through that process of consenting to your app and authenticating as well. That's all I was going to speak about today. I know we've finished a little bit early, but yeah, I want to quickly finish with this series, build and deploy apps for Microsoft Teams using Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, is on Microsoft Learn. It is a Learn Path. We covered building tabs today. Just a reminder, not next week, week after, which will be the 21st of March, we'll be covering Teams JavaScript library. Before then going on to deploying and publishing your app. But yeah, if this interests you and you want to learn more about the previous weeks as well and modules, check out the Learn Path at aka.ms/learn/Teams Toolkit, and the previous recordings as well that will also be on the community YouTube channel. And with that, Vesa, back to you.
Excellent. Thank you, Garry. Really, really cool demo, and the simplification and how easy it is to do those things. It's really great. It's certainly heading to the right direction. Gets simplified release by release, so to say. And just to remind everybody, there's the V5 preview release of the Teams Toolkit also available. So if you have time and availability, I know that the team would love to get your feedback around what works in Teams Toolkit and what does not work in Teams Toolkit. Now, that's all we're going to do today. And we are closing a few minutes early, which is great. Better to have a few extra minutes than not that much time. Thank you, Waldek. Thank you, Ayça. Thank you, Garry. Really cool demos today. Next week, Tuesday demos will be Waldek continuing his recap on the hackathon. We'll do a bit more detailed on what has happened, what are the demos and the things on that setup. And then Garry Pretty is going to be doing a session around Power Virtual Agents. So those Power Virtual Agents are the ones which you can use to create Microsoft Teams chat or bot experiences in Microsoft Teams. So that's going to be really cool as well. And then Dan Walling is going to continue the series related on Azure Communication Services for Microsoft Teams. So a lot of cool stuff on next Tuesday on the pipeline as well. And a reminder, next Tuesday, 14th, and also the 21st of March will be 1 hour earlier than typically for European-based persons because the US moves to summertime during this weekend. Now, if you have downloaded the recurrent invite and put it in your calendar, that is suggesting in Outlook or whatever is your chosen calendar model. I know for Outlook, it is adjusted automatically. You can download the recurrent invite from akms/community/ms-speakers-call-invite. That's the easiest way to actually make things happen. And yes, indeed, as I'm watching Lauren's comment, we are heading to the summer already. So summertime starting in the US this weekend and in Europe within 2 weeks. Now, that's all we're going to do today. As mentioned, the recording will be available in 24 hours at the Microsoft 365 and Power Platform community YouTube channel at AKMS Community Videos. Subscribe there today. You'll know immediately when it's available. Typically, it's much faster than 24 hours, but we want to promise ourselves a bit of a buffer if there's any surprises. You can follow us on Twitter or in LinkedIn. The updates are being shared in the LinkedIn as well. The next call will be March 14th, and you can double check all of the different calls from akms/community/calls. But thank you everybody for joining again. Thank you for your feedback. Thank you for lovely discussion again on the chat. Those are really cool, those reactions and all of those for the demos. But that's it for now. Thanks, everybody. Have a safe rest of the week, and we'll see you next week or in the Thursday 7 a.m. Pacific call. Thanks, everybody.